All right, welcome to Raptors Weekly for the week of October the 19th. The Raptors have beaten the Cleveland Cavaliers sans LeBron James. They beat them 87-81, which sends the Cavs to 0-6 in the preseason. This is because LeBron's not playing in the preseason much. He's out getting like cortisone shots or all kinds of shit in his back so that he can be healthy for the regular season. While the Raptors made a change in the lineup, they introduced Luis Scola into the lineup and took out the struggling Patterson. To discuss this and a lot more, I'm joined by one of the new blood at RR, Shyam Baskaran. Hey, man.
How's it going?
Not bad. Getting excited about the Raptors. The preseason wins keep rolling in, and I think we're like 9 days away. You wrote in your article today, so
That's right. That's right.
so it's exciting times.
Yeah, roll in win number 4.
Yeah, not that preseason matters much as we've seen in the past, but it's still you gotta feel good about how the Raptors are playing as a team for the most part during this regular season, during this preseason, I should say, which is a far cry from what we saw last season, right? Last season was all about ISO ball, and this preseason, Sham, definitely a different flavor.
Absolutely. I think there's still some stuff we got to clean up. Obviously, a lot of rust shooting wise. I think we're at 38% today. Cleveland wasn't much better, around 40%. So I think we got to clean up a lot. I mean, you got Patrick Patterson basically. I think he's got some struggles he needs to work out. Terrence Ross. Still some instability off the bench with Biyombo and so on. So I think we've got a lot of stuff we need to clean up. But at the same time, I think you're right. We're finding ways to win games. I mean, and realistically, if Patterson doesn't let that pass go through his hands, we may be talking about a 5th preseason victory. So
Yeah. Yeah, the pass you're talking about is against Minnesota. So let's talk about that game because that was the game that happened during the week. Since the last time we did the podcast, he was having a typically miserable game, and Dwayne Casey left him on the court with the game on the line, down two. And was it Bruno who was inbounding the ball? I think. Um, he
yeah, I
yeah,
think so.
which was shocking in its own right because he's actually getting some playing time down the stretch, even it's preseason, and he delivered a pretty nice pass to Patterson, who was open, but he took his eyes off the ball. Perhaps kind of clenching and perhaps wanting to make up for the preseason he's had, he kind of let it through his hand, and that was the game for the Raptors.
Yeah, I think after the game he said something like, that's what happens when you take your eye off the ball. And I played a lot of basketball, and that's basically what that was. He looked right at the ball when it came out of the hands, and right when it came to him, his eyes were off the ball. So I think Patterson, normally starts pretty slow anyway. I don't think we've got anything to worry about, and I think he's kind of he'd settle into more of a bench role, which we kind of saw previewed today as well. So I think with Patterson, we just got to give him some time. I mean, let's give him a couple weeks and let's see where his shot's at. Obviously, his timing's a bit off. But let's just wait and see. I think that's what preseason's for, right? And maybe that's why it's so annoyingly long, is to sort of iron out some of these kinks.
Where do you stand on this theory that Luis Scola and Jonas Valanciunas can't play at the same time in the front court because they're a defensive liability? During the summer, I was kind of that same state of mind as well because they're both somewhat lumbering big men. But in the preseason so far, it hasn't been much of a factor. Like, where were you in that conversation?
Yeah, no, I saw that in your reaction today too. I don't know. In fact, I think with Scola, I kind of always envisioned him coming off the bench, and if he did, he'd be playing with either Valanciunas sparingly or maybe even Biombo or Bennett. So I figured, some of that would be worked into that. I mean, and obviously you've got Damari who can sort of lean on defensively as well. So I mean, I never really viewed it as a concern legitimately, and I knew with Dwayne Casey, he's sort of going to actively monitor that anyway. But I mean, going into this game, not necessarily a worry for me, and obviously for good reason.
Yeah, so you'd feel comfortable with Scola starting and
I
Patterson
think
coming
so.
off the bench. Yeah.
I think so. I mean, I think with Patterson, if he's not able to be consistent offensively, then why not, right? I think Scola's the way to go.
Yeah, yeah, and I wrote this in the quick reaction is that Patterson's a guy who's so used to coming off the bench that when he plays in the starting lineup, he might see himself as the fifth best offensive player on the court, and that might reflect in his attitude towards taking shots because we saw him pass up a lot of good looks during the first five games of the preseason, and that's not because they were bad shots. They were good shots that came to him at the right moment, and he just didn't take the shot because I think mentally he feels that he's the fifth best option, so somebody else should shoot. But when he's coming off the bench, like he's probably like the option number one or option two, and he feels way more comfortable just hoisting up a shot. And he did that today with some confidence and hit two threes.
I totally agree with you. Totally agree with you there. I think in the starting lineup, well. First of all, he's playing against the opposing team's first guy, which in itself is harder. And secondly, I think he does feel a little bit of that burn being the fifth option. I mean, he may be a little tentative if he's going to take a three and he misses. It means that much more. So he may be a little bit more on a shorter leash in that respect, But I think coming off the bench, it's more free and easy. He may be, the first option coming off the bench, so he's kind of got the green light in more cases than not. So, I would agree with you there. And in fact, I think as the season plays itself out, we may see Patterson kind of shining off the bench, and then get inserted into the starting lineup, and then sort of, have a game like today or a game like in Minnesota where he just kind of lays an egg. Mm-hmm. So, and that'll be interesting to see how Dwayne Casey sort of, settles in on that power forward starting spot.
Let's continue talking about the bench. Cory Joseph, another strong game. You look for his shot a lot more against Cleveland. Went 4 for 9, 11 points, 6 assists. Terribly efficient game again from Joseph, who's he's becoming, his consistency is one of the themes of this preseason, where you kind of know what to expect of him right off the bat, and he seems to deliver every time.
Totally agree again. I think Cory Joseph is I think I mentioned this in my piece this morning as well. I think Joseph is the stability factor off the bench that Dwayne Casey's going to rely on, and he's a stud. I mean, he's sort of a young vet at 24 years of age, excuse me, and I think it's exactly like what you said. I mean, you know what to expect from the guy. I think as the season wears on, I think what we're going to expect from Joseph is going to be sort of 8 to 15 points a game, 4 to 6 assists, solid defense. He's a dribble heavy point guard, which takes some getting used to be honest with you. Dribble heavy, but he finishes strong at the basket, good free throw shooter, and hits open threes. So I think he'd fit right in, and I think he's going to be exactly what you said, sort of that stability, presence off of the bench.
Do you think he would start on, like, how many teams in the NBA would he actually start on, Cory Joseph?
That's a great question. It's funny. I actually said that this morning too, and I actually, I didn't actually think about how many teams. I would think, I don't know. I would, first thought I would think maybe 5 teams, but that come to mind.
Well, I think it's more than that. I mean, if you just off top,
would you consider him an above average point guard?
I think I would have to. Well, Boston, Marcus Smart, he's better than Marcus Smart. Brooklyn, Jared Jack, he's better than Jared Jack. Charlotte, Kemba Walker.
He's better than Jared Jack for sure.
Kemba Walker in Charlotte.
Yep, I would agree with you there as well. Well, Kemba Walker, I mean that's debatable. I think Cory Joseph might edge him out though.
Mm-hmm. Calderon in New York, he's better than that.
Absolutely, agree with you there as well.
Drew Holiday.
I think we could settle on maybe 12 teams.
I think so. I think let's just say, I don't want to go through the entire point guard list here, but just browsing the list, I'm saying that he could start on. Yeah, I think 12 is a good number.
Yeah. I mean, there's enough starting point guards all-star point guards in the league anyway. With you're talking about Wall, Steph Curry. Who else we're looking at?
Yeah, it's a stacked position.
Westbrook, Lowry now. So, I mean, you're talking about at least 5 to 10 guys that are going to be all-stars, and then he's probably sort of in that tier 2.
Yeah. Before we get to Bismack Biyombo, who had another monster game, I'd say, let's talk about Terrence Ross and give him a little bit props today. An active game. Props. Yeah, I think. Why, you didn't think he had a good game today?
I think he had a good game. Yeah, I mean, 20 minutes of burn. Efficient 8 points. 1 rebound? I think he could probably grab a few more of those if he could. But I mean, we know what to expect from Terrence Ross. I think off the bench, you're gonna get 5 points some nights, 15 points some nights, maybe 20 points once in every now and then. But that's pretty much all you're gonna get from him. And I think defensively, Terrence Ross coming off the bench will be interesting because now I feel like he can actually assert himself against the other team's second best shooting guard as opposed to their first best small forward.
Yeah, that's a pretty good point. I think him going to the bench and the introduction of DeMario Carroll as a starting small forward just does that automatically, and it should help him there. But today I just want again baby steps with Terrence Ross, as Will always says, which is it's kind of weird for a guy in his fourth year. Um, he was active today. I think he got a couple of deflections. He had a couple of threes. The shot that right now is just not happening for him is that dribble drive because he's able to fake out a defender just based on his 3-point percentage, and the defense has to respect that. And once he gets by that initial guy who's kind of closing out on him, he really doesn't have that explosiveness to get to the rim. But at the same time, he also doesn't have that mid-range jumper to make him pay. So he's always in no man's land after he fakes that guy coming out. He dribbles to the left, and suddenly he's got the live dribble. His defense is behind him, but he's got nothing, like no offensive option. So he ends up bricking a shot, or he has to pass the ball.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. In fact, I think with Terrence Ross, sometimes you'll see once, off the dribble penetration, when someone kicks it out to him, I'd almost rather him shoot a contested three than sort of dribble his way into trouble, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Just because, spot up shooter, Terrence Ross is pretty damn good, especially when he's open. So, it's almost like when he gets the ball out there, I'd rather him just take a three as opposed to sort of dribbling his way into, a fadeaway 18-footer, because that part, like you said, is definitely missing.
Yeah, that's it. And I'm sure if you look at the analytics or the advanced stats on that one, you'll see him shoot a lot better from that initial catch and shoot than after a dribble. I gotta look that up. A bit lazy right now, but I think that would hold true. But Bismack Biyombo, he's the main event tonight. 10 rebounds, 8 points. Let me just say again that I apologize to our listener for making fun of Bismack Biyombo all across the summer. Saying that he does not have any offensive game, any kind of.
He was
stuff.
3 for 5 tonight, man.
He attempted a mid-range jumper, which he missed. But hey, man, trying is the first step towards achieving something. So good on that.
Well, I mean, he was playing against Cleveland's D-League team, basically. So
still, I think we can agree on this: is that he is going to be providing a legitimate defensive presence throughout the rest of the season.
I would agree with you, and I think it's a matchup thing too. In games where we're sort of getting beat, from a time, like if we're getting outpaced, I think Bismack's a great guy to go to sort of slow the game down and grind it out and be more of a defensive team. And I think you'll see that in games against Golden State or any of those types of teams, and it'll be interesting to see how Casey sort of uses him.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate the guy cannot shoot. Like he's a write-off. It's not even like he's like a 30% shooter from mid-range. He won't even try them.
Yeah, outside 10 feet, I may as well be shooting them.
Yeah. And it's surprising. It always gets me, man, when a player is in the NBA for so long and hasn't developed such a core part of the game. Like how do you not know how to shoot like an 8-footer?
Well, I mean, if Shaq can basically be one of the 50 greatest basically without being able to do that, I think people can carve out a niche in the league to be able to do certain things without having to do that. But at the same time, I think it's a glaring weakness, and I think you'll see teams foul him intentionally or whatever may be the case to sort of get him away from getting those garbage points. Because I think I'd rather, you're going to see a lot of hard fouls and those types of things on Bismack, right? Because he's not going to shoot it. I think he's at 50-something% from the line. So you're right. I mean, the guy absolutely can't shoot, but he does do a couple of things well, and that's block shots and provide an interior, defensive presence. Mm-hmm. And we saw that tonight too. I think it was the first quarter or the second quarter where he had the monster, the rebound, the offensive rebound, pulls the ball down and just rips it down and goes right back up for an and one. So, I mean, that's the kind of stuff he does. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And credit to the guy. I'm just saying that, I get the Shaq comparison you just made there, but Shaq didn't need to make a jumper because he had a ridiculous offensive game in the post. It's just guys like Biyombo who just can't shoot.
Oh no, yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree with you. I think Biyombo, he does what he does, and if you need that in a game, situationally, you might see Casey put him in.
Yeah. And that's one thing Amir Johnson, the former Raptor, developed over the course of his career here. Like when in his first couple of seasons, he didn't know how to shoot. Even in his third season, he didn't know how to shoot. But over the course of his career, he developed that mid-range jumper that he had. And eventually it became a shot that people used to actually come out and cover him. But that wasn't there on day one. It was something he worked on. And it's just it speaks to Amir Johnson's work ethic and preparation and desire to get better. I just would expect other power forwards in that situation to do the same, and just Biyombo hasn't done that. So I'm not ripping on the guy. I'm just noticing that he's got a pretty glaring weakness there.
Yeah, and I think if he wants to take his career to the next level, like Amir did, post that contract that he got in 2010, I think that's something he's going to have to develop. It just based on his skill, it doesn't look like it's something that's going to come easily to him. But we'll wait and see.
Yeah. So let's continue with the power forward talk. Anthony Bennett continues to get some run. Today he got to the line a few times. Had a nice little drive going left, which he almost dunked on someone's face, but ended up getting fouled and shot the 2 free throws. This was a game where he was more active. He got 3 rebounds in 13 minutes, and that was my major complaint with him, observing him so far this preseason, is that he doesn't do enough, JYD type stuff out there. And this was the first game where I saw him actually like scrap for the ball hard, and I think maybe he's getting that message that that's his role on the team, this peripheral garbage man type player who might give you some offense, and it's not an offense first role.
Yeah. I don't know how comfortable I am with him shooting threes though.
He's a terrible 3-point shooter. He's at
he hit one tonight, but I mean, I cringe, every time it happens.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. I think he could be an energy guy. I think it really depends on the situation. I think it depends on how Scola and Valanciunas are, if they're doing well or if they're in foul trouble or what the situation is. But yeah, I think he's where he could sort of figure in to be that energy guy off the bench.
To me, having Anthony Bennett or Bismack Biyombo on the floor at the same time from an offensive perspective, there's not a whole lot of difference.
Yeah, I think with Bennett, you get what you get, and that's sort of that athletic. He's sort of that freak athlete. He's almost too athletic for his for the ability in terms of dribbling and the rest of his game. So it's like if he could get to his spot and he could jump over you, but he can't get to his spot. So I feel like with Bennett, he's limited in that sense. And when you look at Biyombo, I think he's a better offensive rebounder than Bennett. He's more of a he kind of picks up on something else that's happening. Bennett's more of if he gets points, he's going to have to sort of dribble it and kind of go himself or get to the line. So, I mean, you're right. Give or take, they're the same, but we'll see sort of who. And that's something I was going to ask you was who do you think would play, at the end of the year? Who do you think is going to get more burned, Bennett or Biyombo?
I think if Dwayne Casey's still the head coach, I would say Biyombo because he prefers defense. And offensively, I just don't see what Bennett is adding right now. He can't spread the floor. He can't hit the mid-range jumper. He doesn't really have any post-up moves. In college, he was great, a great post-up player, but in NBA, it's not really happened for him. So I don't know what would justify including Bennett on offense, and defensively, you'd rather have Biyombo. So offensively, I don't see what he would bring that would be so much better than Biyombo, because you're sacrificing Biyombo's defense if you play Bennett. So knowing Dwayne Casey's tendencies to play defense for his guys, I would say he'd go with Biyombo.
Yep, I think I'd agree with you. I think with Bennett though, the key is going to be if he can sort of settle into being a situational guy, if he can pick up on other people's playing style, and if he can sort of fit in. He can't be the guy like the Chris Humphries, early in his career would always do this, was he can't be the guy coming into the game thinking that, I have to score the ball.
Yeah. He
kind of has to take advantage of what's happening on the court. So if there's an offensive rebound to grab, he's got to go grab it. But, there's going to be no plays run through him.
Yeah, that's an interesting point because people always say, well, Bismack Biyombo is the replacement for Tyler Hansbrough. I would say Tyler Hansbrough is a better parallel to Anthony Bennett because Tyler Hansbrough in college was a great scorer, and he could finish in all kinds of ways in college, and he was arguably one of the best players in college basketball history. But in the NBA, his offensive game wasn't just working, and he adopted his role to becoming this garbage man type player who could finish when called upon. And I think that's what Anthony Bennett's NBA projection is at this point. So he should kind of model his game, as weird as that sounds, to Tyler Hansbrough than anyone else.
I think Hansbrough's a good comparison, and I think we saw some of that last year too when Casey, I can't believe that actually happened, but when Casey put in Hansbrough, when he started those first 2 games against Washington, that's what he brought, and that was sort of that scrappy, offensive rebounding, sticks his arm out and makes a play. You know what I mean? And that's what we're gonna need out of Biyombo on certain nights. So, or sorry, Bennett. And he may be able to settle into that role if it's needed too, right? It's a depth add by Ujiri. So if there's an injury or if someone's struggling, he could settle into that role absolutely.
All right, man. Let's take a quick break and come back and talk some DeMar DeRozan and a bunch of other topics. Welcome to part 2 of the Rapcast. Talking DeMar DeRozan right now. The guy's struggles continue, man. He was, let's check here, 3 for 11 for this game, 7 points, 3 assists, 2 rebounds, 2 horrible turnovers, 2 DeMar DeRozan-esque turnovers, as you described before the podcast. What do you mean by that? Explain to us what a typical DeMar DeRozan turnover looks like.
I think our listeners know what a DeMar DeRozan turnover is, but I think with DeRozan, he got a lot better with his ball handling coming into last year, but I mean that was still a glaring weakness for him. I think when he's in those positions where he's coming sort of off a right to left crossover, top of the key, sort of hits his spot, and then you'll see him sort of jump up and then flail his arms. And the opposition will sort of grab at the ball, and you'll see the ball sort of pop out, and that's a DeMar DeRozan-esque turnover. And we've seen it. We saw it a lot more 3 years ago, and it's a little less now, but we saw 2 ugly ones tonight. So
it's almost like his turnovers remind me like when you beat a defense and you think in your head that you got them beat, like you're through, you're clear. All you got to do is release a shot or make a move, and you're in. But then you start making that move, and boom, the defense just stripped the ball from you, and you're like, where did that come from? It's like mentally he thinks he's beaten the D, but in reality the D's right there.
Yeah.
and it's frustrating to see that.
It's funny, I can't believe I'm making this comparison, but I used to see that all the time with Bargnani. Sometimes he and it was rare, but he'd beat the guy sometimes, and then he'd sort of jump up and then not know what to do. Yeah. So
I made the point in my quick reaction that his game it's a very individualistic game where the Raptors this preseason have been playing like a team. I think we can all agree that the ball movement has been much better. Credit to Dwayne Casey. Cory Joseph has helped. Kyle Lowry's east-west movement has helped a lot. He's driving the ball a lot more. So all these factors are coming into play, and the Raptors' offense is looking actually a lot better. They're sharing the ball more. The assist numbers might not be great, even though they had 22 in this game. The offense looks better. But once in a while you see that DeMar DeRozan possession, and everybody kind of freezes and says, okay, guys, let's just stop playing like a team and give it to DeMar DeRozan, who's going to do his thing. And once he's finished, we can resume our team play on the next possession. Like his game sticks out like a sore thumb right now amidst what the rest of the Raptors offense is doing.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think if you look at Lowry, who's sort of the other end of the spectrum, I mean, he had his struggles today, but he's been lighting it up. And with DeMar, what you're seeing is a lot of rust, which you wouldn't typically expect from.
He played
DeMar,
all summer in the Drew League.
Yeah, he's played all summer, and DeMar's a gym rat. I mean, we know that this is clearly not his first basketball experience, in a long time or anything like that. So, I don't know if this is DeMar just sort of taking it lightly in the preseason, or maybe he's just sort of saying, hey, I'll kick back, take some rest, and put in my all in my contract year, right? So, I mean, I don't know what we're seeing from DeMar, but it's definitely a slow start. It's ugly. 3 for 11, what we saw from DeMar today was very typical in the games where we got frustrated with him last year, where we used to see turnovers and poor shooting.
Yeah, and it's a type of 3 of 11, right? It's like I think he had like 6 missed jumpers today, or 7 I see on the shot chart here. They're very much ISO. It's not really coming from a team context. It's him creating his own opportunity. It's those kind of things that I think even Dwayne Casey right now must be scratching his head and saying, how do I actually fit this player into the team? Because he's not a guy who will spread the court for you. The defense will not respect his jumper. So you really have to. He really has to slash basically to get his points, and he's not slashing. He's more of a catching the ball at the elbow and making a move rather than always being in motion and catching and taking it all the way to the rim. Like we see DeMar Carroll being a great example of that. Somebody who as soon as he catches the ball, he's moving towards the rim. he's not just sitting there idling or dribbling or wasting time. It's catch and make a move right away. DeMar doesn't have that aspect to his game right now.
DeMar's a better passer, though. I think you're right in the sense that he may not be the best in those situations, but I think one of the calling him an ISO guy only, I think would be a little unfair, just because I think sometimes with DeMar he attracts a lot of attention from opposing teams, especially when he's doing well, when he's shooting well. I think we saw it a lot at the tail end of the regular season last year. When he's shooting well, he attracts a second or third defender, and he got a lot better at passing out of that last year. As an ISO player, yes, I think he still does ISO a lot, and a lot of his game is revolved around that. But we did see a lot of it last year, where he could be an active passer as well. We did a piece on him earlier, during media day, and it kind of talked about how things could go either way for him. But at the same time, what I kind of end up seeing is, I think he's going to sort of be the same DeMar DeRozan we've seen the past 2 or 3 years, maybe a little bit better on the scoring front. I think you'll see his scoring take a little bit of a bump. I think you'll see his free throws take a little bit of a bump. And I think you may see his rebounding improve a little. But I think other than that, we're going to see the same DeMar DeRozan, and that's going to make it really interesting coming into his contract status for next year.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think on Twitter, I think Will it was who tweeted that at this point, would anybody feel comfortable playing DeMar DeRozan $27 million a year? And obviously the response was no, but somebody made a point that there's always going to be a GM or a few GMs that might fall over each other trying to offer him the max. And I'm not convinced of that. I don't think it's that cut and dry that DeMar DeRozan will be getting a max or even close to a max this summer. What are your thoughts? What do you think the Raptors' competition will be this summer for DeMar DeRozan? Is it going to be steep, or is he going to be a highly sought after player, or will the Raptors kind of have him to themselves?
I don't know. I actually have no idea, and that's what's most interesting about this is that DeMar doesn't stand out as. He's not one of the guys you talk about when you think about, exciting free agent prospects for next year. Or, from another team's perspective anyway. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting. I think DeMar, he doesn't seem like the type of guy that, is going to take a contract year more seriously than any other year. But I think his scoring will definitely take a bit of a hike. I think you'll see him in the 24 to 25 point per game range. And I think his free throws, which is where he lives, and that's where he gets most of his points, will sort of be where we'll see the bulk of his points anyway.
Like for example, DeMar DeRozan played on, I don't know, the Pelicans and put up the same stats as he's putting up right now. And you didn't have really a legitimate shooting guard. Would you be like, oh my God, we got to get DeMar DeRozan on our team?
I think the way other teams view him is a max player. I would disagree with you. I think there'd be at least 5 teams, lined up to get DeMar at or close to the max next year. I think just based on, there's the tease factor too, right? When we got Rudy Gay, we thought we were getting an all-star. We thought we were getting somebody who's going to, close the deal, and we got teases of that initially when he joined the team in 2013. But he ended up being Rudy Gay. So I think with DeMar, you're going to see something similar where some team might sort of fall for the trap and think, we're getting a 25 points per game perennial all-star, athletic shooting guard that's going to take us, deep into the playoffs. But I think what they're really getting is in a sense kind of like a Rudy Gay. And I think last year, in fact, his true shooting percentage was worse than Gay for a large part of the season.
Yeah, because Gay had a bit of a rebound here. I'm actually somebody sent me a book, a Raptors book, and I don't think there are many out there. It's called 100 Things Raptor Fans Should Know and Do Before They Die, and it's by Dave Mendonca. I don't know if it's hit the bookstores yet. So it's got 100 Things Raptor Fans Should Know and Do Before They Die. And he's got 100 chapters on here. And chapter 26 is called The DeRozan Era. And I don't know what it's about. But it starts off with this sentence. And I'll read that to you here. It says, Compton, California is known for being a rough part of LA. But it's one that was also the birthplace of a future Raptors star who'd become a key member in the club's post-Chris Bosh success. And that's how that chapter starts, about DeMar DeRozan. I'll do a book review when it's all done, when I've read the whole thing, but DeMar DeRozan made the 100 things Raptor fans should know and do before they die.
That's interesting. I'm actually looking up the book right now too.
Yeah. So let's move on. DeMar DeRozan is playing pretty poorly, but he's looking pretty good in those jerseys, which are kind of growing on me, man. When they first, well, I still hate the rebrand. Don't get me wrong. I hate the new logo. I think it's ugly. It's horrible. Going away from the classic claw is a huge mistake. But the actual jerseys, how plain they are, how simple they are, they're growing on me. And somebody pointed out that of the 4 Raptors jerseys, the Drake, the home and away, the alternate, there is no mention of the word Toronto on there, on none of the 4 jerseys.
It's Canada's team, man.
Yeah, and that question was also posed to the Raptors Media Relations Twitter account, and he kind of said, well, I can't confirm, but it's because it's being marketed as Canada's team, and that's why there's no mention of Toronto on there, which I thought was interesting, because I don't know if there's any other team in the league which takes that approach.
Yeah, and I think with the Jays and Leafs as well, you'll see it. Toronto mentioned on the jerseys. I think with the Jays, they have a Toronto jersey as well. So I mean, do I think it's weird? Sort of. Does it really matter? Not really. The jerseys, I think the way to describe them would be crisp. That's the first word that comes to mind when I think of the jerseys. They're safe a little, from a design perspective. But they're crisp. They're definitely fresher, I guess, than the old threads.
Yeah, you gonna buy one?
Maybe. I like the one Drake rocked at OVO though. The black and gold. Yeah. Cory Joseph. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I was checking out some jerseys on AliExpress. You been to that site?
No, man.
Yeah, it's this AliExpress.com or something like that.
Okay.
Just Google it up, AliExpress. It's basically made in China, and they got like all kinds of jerseys. They're obviously fake.
But they're basically virtually exactly the same, right?
Yeah, I mean, you put them side by side, and you're gonna be like, yeah, that's the fake one, that's the real one, no doubt.
Yeah, I got a throwback VC, so.
But if you just wear them on their own on the street from 10 feet or more away, or I don't know, 6 feet or more away, they're gonna look the same, man. And they cost like $17, including shipping. By the way, this podcast is not being sponsored by AliExpress by any means. I'm just telling you, it's out there. And
I got a jersey from them, and I would agree. In fact, I think I would disagree. I think from far, it depends on which jersey too. I think when you look at the throwbacks, the ones with the big dinosaur, I think you'll see definitely it sort of looks, what's the word? Sort of smushed together, if that makes sense. Yeah. But with the new jerseys, I think maybe a little better. I don't know.
Because there's less room for error in the new jerseys, right? It's just Raptors.
Yeah, I mean, how could you get that wrong, right?
Yeah. And also depends on on AliExpress, you have a bunch of people who kind of make the jerseys probably in their own basement or some shit, but they put it up on AliExpress, so it depends what the maker of the jersey is. So whose house it's being made in, or whose kid is making it.
Oh my goodness, AliExpress is pissed off right now, or maybe they're happy. I don't know. They're getting a lot of pub.
Yeah, so I mean, check it out, man. Like if you're short on money, and there's $90 for a jersey is a lot plus tax. Here you get it for like $17, and it's pretty much
if you're grabbing jerseys at the real sports store, then good luck. So.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of when I used to go to Kensington Market, and they used to have a lot of fake jerseys out there, like soccer jerseys mostly, but they had a lot of NBA throwback jerseys. And I picked myself a Nick Van Exel jersey from way back, and I still have it, and it's awesome, man. I got it for like $14. So.
That's good.
Yeah, there you go, AliExpress. I don't know what else is going on, man. The season starts in about 9 days or so. You gonna go to any Raptor games this year?
I think so. I think I'll go to my fair share. I think I want to check out the highlight games though, like the Clippers, the Cavs. I think those will be fun at the ACC. The ACC is gonna be rocking.
Yeah, I gotta check out the Washington games. I'm looking forward to those.
Because
the way that team just humiliated us.
What do you think? What do you think the Pierce reception is going to be in the Clippers games?
I think Toronto is just tired of seeing Pierce, and I don't think they have the energy to boo him at this point. They just be like, oh
Almost.
God, just don't kill us and just move on. You know what I mean?
Can you imagine though if he hits, a dagger 3 in the fourth quarter?
He probably will. So looking at some dates. So Washington is on December 30th, right before New Year's. Washington visits the ACC. It's on a Wednesday. That's a game that I definitely want to circle in the calendar. Just because of the way that playoff series went, man. I think the Raptors have a lot to prove this season when they face the Wizards. So
how many U.S. nationally televised games do we have?
The schedule obviously changes, but just browsing the schedule as it stands right now. Well, let's play a game right now. Over under 3.
I'm saying over.
Well, no. We have one game on ESPN right now.
Wow.
Yeah. And we have one game on TNT.
That's legitimately shocking. Wow. I thought we had at least 3 last year, right?
I think last year we might have had.
Does
2.
NBA TV count?
No, that doesn't count. Okay. ESPN we have one game, and on TNT we have one game. And then on NBA TV, depending on what you think of it, we have about 8 games scheduled right now.
Okay.
But I wouldn't call that national TV because that's.
No, I think you're right.
So it's 2 games. So we went down 1 from last year, which makes sense because the way the Raptors got swept. I mean, why would you want to see the Raptors? And like, what star player do the Raptors have that the U.S. Television audience would actually care about?
Yeah.
Let's talk about Lowry before we kind of sign off here. He kind of came back down to earth and, just had a bad game. Simple as that. I think he still played pretty well in terms of assists. He dropped a lot of dimes. He had a few really nice plays with Jonas Valanciunas today. A couple of pick and rolls, which Jonas finished, and one where Lowry kind of kept the ball to himself and finished. So that dynamic between Lowry and Valanciunas seemed to be happening today, at least against the Cavaliers.
Yeah, and I like the way Lowry. I like his finishing ability. I think that's something that stood out for me as well. Obviously tonight he didn't shoot it well, but what we've seen in the preseason from Lowry is, I think we're seeing the impact of his. I know we've talked about it to death, but his weight loss. I think we're seeing sort of it come to fruition, and the way he plays, he hits the deck a lot more than I'd like, to be honest with you. But especially because I think they were mentioning it on the radio broadcast, especially because there's less of a cushion now when he falls. So watching him fall is a bit concerning. But I think with Lowry, we know what I think with him as well. I talked about this as one of our known factors. This morning was that's something we know. I think Lowry's going to have an amazing year. I think with him it's just health and usage. Depending on, I think with him, he played way too many minutes last year. I think Dwayne Casey knows that and realizes that now, and they paid the price in the playoffs. So I think with Lowry, you're going to see, on a per 48-minute basis, he's going to be playing very well. But I don't think you're going to see many 37 to 40-minute nights from Lowry this year.
And that was one of the reasons which I thought we might see more of Delon Wright this season, because I'd say Lowry gets 50% of the minutes, Cory Joseph gets like 40% of the minutes, and then Delon Wright gets 10% of the minutes. But the way the rotations are kind of shaping up right now, and the way Delon Wright's playing, like, I don't have a doubt that Delon Wright might become a decent player in this league. But right now, I just don't see him being part of the regular rotation by any means.
Yeah. No, I think with Delon Wright, it's going to be sort of an opportunistic, happy to be here. If he gets 5 minutes, 10 minutes one night, if someone, depending on the matchup, if they decide to throw him in there, you're going to see him. But I don't see him playing more than 7 to 10 minutes on average per night at the most. Mm-hmm. And that's something I was going to ask you too. Like, realistically, the fringe guys, as I'd like to call them, in terms of guys who could make the rotation, could not. To me, it would be Norman Powell, Bennett, and Delon Wright. So out of those 3 guys, who do you think legitimately could crack the rotation? Like, and I'm talking guys who putting in 15 minutes a night. I
think Norman Powell.
Yeah.
I think I would put him ahead of Bennett in terms of chance of playing decent minutes, because if you look at competition wise, Anthony Bennett's going up against Bismack Biyombo, Luis Scola, and Patrick Patterson, who I don't think he has a chance of eclipsing, just because I don't think he's as talented as the rest of those guys. Those guys can all bring something to the table, and Bennett, we don't really know what he can do right now. In terms of Delon Wright, well, he's got Cory Joseph, who's playing fantastic, and Kyle Lowry, so I think that ship has sailed. But when you look at normal Powell, he's got Terrence Ross ahead of him. And I think he can kind of eclipse Ross just based on pure swagger and just the way he plays, the confidence he has. I see him kind of making a dent in that playing time, whereas the other two guys are just against stiffer competition.
Yeah, and I think with Powell, what you see is he's kind of like a Marcus Smart, but like a shooting guard version. I love his sort of he gets in your grill. He's tenacious. He slashes. He's exactly what they need at the 2 spot. I mean, he's slightly undersized, but I think he makes up for some of that, especially coming off the bench. If you pair him up with Cory Joseph or someone, I think that'd be really interesting to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, man, Bobby Portis. Oh my God, it's early. It's early. I mean, you know what I mean? And credit to Steve Gennaro podcast. The Doctor is in podcast on the Raptors Republic, which we hope to bring back this season. He called it, man. I mean, in the post-strat podcast, he's like, well, I think passing on Bobby Portis was a mistake, and Jesus, he's creating some decisions there for for the Chicago Bulls at the power forward spot.
Yeah, no, for sure, absolutely. And I think, for us, if you look at the power forward spot, I think that's going to be the most inconsistent spot for us.
Yeah.
In terms of guys coming in off the bench, like in terms of starting lineups changing, in terms of rotation changing, minutes distribution. The power forward is going to be an awkward spot for us, I think.
Yeah. So. And I know Michael Hollian wrote a brilliant piece really comparing, the undercard of Delon Wright versus Bobby Portis. And it's not looking good for Delon Wright right now, but hey, it's early and, let's hope it works out for him, man, because I don't want to look back.
A lot of pressure now, right?
I don't want to look back at this and have a, Joey Graham.
Oh, my God.
Not Joey Graham, what was it? Rafael Arroyo versus Andre Iguodala moment here.
Oh my goodness, yeah. I think that was one of the biggest ones that pop up.
Hey,
what was the Charlie V? Was it Gerald Green that year?
I think that one wasn't too bad. I think later on it was Joey Graham over Danny Granger that kind of puzzled a lot of people.
Yeah, that was a bad one, absolutely.
But that wasn't even hindsight. It was like as soon as it happened, you're like,
oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
I think there was concerns around Danny Granger's knee, sort of at the time, but I think we would have all gladly taken Danny Granger.
Yeah. So think pure thoughts, Shyam, and let's root for Delon Wright to pull this through, and hopefully Bobby Portis doesn't just explode. So with that, I think we'll round off the podcast. Shyam, thanks for coming on, man. Your podcast debut, and we'll hope to have you on a lot more.
Happy to help, man. Anytime.
And I know you got some D-League coverage going on this year. You're gonna cover the Raptors 905 for us. Are you actually excited about that stuff?
Absolutely. I mean, it's not as front page news, that's for sure. But I think for the diehards, knowing how Bebe and Bruno and possibly Anthony Bennett are doing, will do us some good. So.
All right. Awesome.
Sounds
good,
man.